World War II, a war that was like none other for its time, would later be considered the most devastating war in military history. Spreading from continent to continent, ocean to ocean, and airfield to airfield, countless innocent men would fight for their lives, some not making it out. This was a war initiated by one evil man, while other countries united to take him down. But through all the clouds of smoke amongst the battlefields around the world, where was Italy? Today, we will be looking into the history of Italy during World War II and Mussolini's top generals. We will answer the questions: who were Mussolini's top generals? What did they do? What was the African campaign and what did Italy do in it? And was Italy effective in World War II? After working for and also being fired from the newspaper in which he was chief of staff at, Mussolini officially had started his political campaign. Mussolini later discovered fascism with the intent of spreading it over Italy and ultimately bringing back the glory days of Italy. He headed the fascist party. In 1922, he was offered the position of prime minister from King Vittorio Emanuele. After gaining power, he immediately created a dictatorship with the intent of capturing the love from citizens. Shortly after Mussolini took power, a group who adored him and came together to fight socialism and communism came together. They were named the Black Shirts, also known as the Squadre d'Azione, which stands for Action Squad. They became an official group in 1923, being named as the Voluntary Fascist Military for National Security. They wore black shirt uniforms to show their support during their time until the group eventually fell after the fall of Mussolini. The Black Shirts are very important to recollect and remember for Italy during World War II because of the importance that they had when they were influencing the Italian economy. The first general that we will be discussing, we briefly mentioned in class because he was later known to be the Prime Minister of Italy. His name was Pietro Badoglio. Pietro was a former soldier who was born into a low-class family in 1871. His first active combat experience was prior to World War I in the battle at Adowa in March of 1896. During this battle, Italy failed miserably, losing to Ethiopian tribesmen. He also experienced combat in the fight for Libya in the early 1910s. Badoglio was then promoted to a colonel in the beginning of World War I, later being further promoted to Major General for handling the capture of Monte Sabatino, which means Mount Sabatino. This gave Italians control over that area during the time and helped launch different attacks from that area. After World War I, Badoglio was promoted to Chief of Staff, where he served as that position for 3 years before jumping around and serving in a multitude of positions such as Marshal and even the governor of Libya. When Italy started to invade Ethiopia in 1935, Mussolini deemed their current commander too slow and threw Badoglio in command for battles such as the Battle of Mechu, where thousands of Ethiopians died to mustard gas, which was one of Badoglio's weapons of war. Towards the beginning of World War II, Mussolini called Badoglio into his office, telling him that he had 3 days to plan an attack on France. Mussolini was relentless at the time and started to lose respect for Badoglio when he kept asking for more time. The rush of time proved to cripple the Italian army, making them not last long into their invasion of France and even Greece. This is when the relationship between the Duce and Badoglio started to fall apart. After the failed invasion of Greece, Badoglio told people that all the fault should be left on Mussolini for his impatience in war planning. Mussolini yelled back, calling him a numerous amount of things, such as a traitor. Badoglio was eventually one of the men that planned to kick Mussolini out of power. Eventually, he again succeeded Mussolini as prime minister, arranging for armistice with multiple countries to break the fighting during the war. He helped take down the fascist party and later declared war on Nazi Germany. He resigned in 1944. The second general we will be talking about is Giovanni Messe. Messe was born in December of 1883. He joined the army in 1901 as a volunteer, and 9 years later he was promoted to first lieutenant. Giovanni was sent to fight in the Libya campaign in World War I for Italy. He participated in the Battle of Schiari Zanja, where Messe and the rest of his regiment were awarded the Gold Medal for war valor, his first of 6 in his career. Throughout his serving time, Messe struggled with health issues as a soldier and was wounded in battle in 1918. He then shifted to an even more higher position when he was appointed military secretary to King Vittorio Emanuele in 1923. During World War II, Messe had a multitude of tasks. He was originally sent to Italy's Protectorate Albania, where he would be under General Ubaldo Sodu's orders. This was quickly turned around as he was then sent to command soldiers in the Greco-Italian War from 1940 to 1941, where the Nazis ultimately came in and assisted Italy to victory. After the Greco-Italian War, he was sent to command troops in Russia, where he believed many of the newcomers and even some of the current soldiers were not well equipped enough to be useful on the battlefield. When the topic of bringing in more troops that were very new to war, he opposed it, which Mussolini did not like. 4 months later, he was transferred out of the campaign. Years later, Messe was sent to fight on the front lines in Africa against the U.S. Commonwealth forces. He played a big role in helping his troops survive for as long as they did. Amidst the battle, he became the Marshal of Italy, the highest rank in Royal Italian Army. His troops would later be surrounded. In 1943, he was captured after his surrender, and after being released and sent back to Italy, he was placed on reserve, where he later became Senator of the Republic before dying in 1968. One of the most iconic and famous campaigns for Italy during World War II was the African Campaign. During the time, Mussolini was concerned because of the amount of success Hitler and the Nazis had over Poland, France, and Norway. In fact, he thought that this could be the beginning of the end of the war. In a greedy attempt to make sure Italy gains land at the end of the war, Mussolini not only declared war on France and Britain, but also sent troops to attack enemy positions in East Africa and Egypt. They were actually successful in their initial attempt, thanks to the Italian troops stationed in Ethiopia. Fresh off a victory, the Italians moved westward into Sudan to overturn the Upper Nile Valley. After their success, they seemed unstoppable and continued their way south to capture the Suez Canal. This was important because the Suez Canal transported military supplies and troops. Then started the beginning of their fall in the campaign. Rejecting the assistance from Hitler and Germany, Mussolini ordered the Italian army to start moving north of Egypt. The soldiers were poorly trained and equipped, not having nearly as much up-to-date weaponry as the other countries did. Upon that, many regiments were starting to split up, meaning there was becoming less and less troops in each group. In the end, the British army was way too well equipped and plentiful. They found gaps in the Italian defenses and ultimately forced over 100,000 Italian soldiers to surrender. This forced Germany to send troops to assist. Despite the powerful German army, the British still pulled away with a victory in Africa, forcing the Germans and Italians to surrender. Ultimately, Italy's experience in World War II was pretty disastrous, fueled by an overconfident leader who was way too aggressive in Benito Mussolini. With the failed invasion of Greece, the loss of Italian empire, the Italians kicking out Mussolini during the war, and the countless lives that were left behind and died in foreign countries, Italy was pretty unsuccessful in their war efforts. The short list of victories that they had experienced were mostly because they were assisted by Germany anyways, further questioning their military strength.